what we do is we help entrepreneurs exit every single day. And so that experience and that gamble led me to this really amazing opportunity and company that is totally different. And here I am 2.5 years later, leading a fantastic team of advisors, M&A, certified M&A advisors, which is, who would ever thought I'd say that in a sentence?
Welcome to Unexpected Journey, the show where each week top professionals share work wisdom and life lessons about their careers and what they have learned about human experience in the workplace. I'm your host, Ann Bibb. As the VP of Sales at Flippa.com, Ray leads an extraordinary team of M&A professionals with a singular goal in mind: to match high-quality business owners with acquisition-fit buyers. Ray is passionate about helping buyers find their dream digital asset and helping sellers find a successful pathway to exit. Stay tuned to find out more of his sales journey and the Flippa company. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments below. Now let's get started. And here we are with Ray from Flippa. And Ray and I have known each other for just a couple of minutes. And I have been wanting to sit down with you for so long to not just catch up, but to really kind of talk. We've never really sat down and talked about how you got here. I mean,
Yeah.
you've given me a few nuggets, but not really kind of gone into the story.
Yeah, it's a story. It's a wild and unexpected journey for sure.
It really is. And, you've given me some hints. You've given me some topics, but all I've really known you as is like Ray, the god of sales, Ray, the guy that I always want to send my salespeople to learn from. But what I really want to know is, how did you become that guy? Was it
Yeah.
intended?
Yeah, no, no. And most folks in sales or sales leadership, for that matter, will probably tell you they had zero intention of getting into sales. So
Wait, you mean in kindergarten you didn't like start selling people cookies and stuff, like things from your lunchbox on the playground
yeah,
and stuff?
no, never did that. Never did that. I was too busy. On the baseball field or on the basketball court.
I can see that with you.
I was never the guy that was knocking on doors, asking people at 10 years old to mow their lawns. I know those people. Those are some great folks, but that wasn't me. Not me at all.
So how did it start? Like, how did you maneuver your windy road into where you are today?
Yeah. So it, like anything, it was an accident. My first sales job, I didn't even know was a sales job. And and so that's a good story. I graduated from college with a bachelor's degree in aeronautical science. So I went to school to be a pilot.
Okay, that's one thing you've never told me, and I literally would have never guessed that.
I went to school to be a pilot. I went to they call it the Harvard of the Skies. It's a school called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and 50% of the airline pilots in the United States have graduated from that college, from that university. So it's a big feeder for the airlines. And so I always wanted to go in the Air Force as a kid. I did ROTC and junior ROTC. Well, I did junior ROTC, and then my first week in school, I did ROTC and was like, nope. Someone yelling at me and doing that is not for me. I do not want to be in the Air Force anymore. Not me. And so I shifted to, I'll be an airline pilot. So my first couple of years, I went through my bachelor's degree as intended. Your typical undergrad classes that you would take, as well as like engineering courses and aviation courses included in that. Got my private pilot's license, got my multi-engine license, got my commercial license, and then my third year, you have to continue to get physicals every year, and the physicals tend to be a little. They're more than your typical medical physical. It's an aviation physical, right? And yeah, I found out I was colorblind, just right on the edge of being colorblind. So I had passed some tests before, but I didn't pass this time and went into further testing. And I was no longer able to go and be an airline pilot because of that. So my original degree path was aeronautics, which is to go be a pilot, and I had to switch to aeronautical science, which is for all the people that can't be a pilot anymore, and that was me. So I graduated kind of in the heat of the recession, 2000, 2008, 2009. There were no jobs. I had a degree that meant nothing to most places. I could have gotten an underwater basket weaving degree, and that might have done more for me. And so, like most young college graduates, I went and moved back home with mom and dad, and had $100,000 plus a piece of paper that I couldn't do anything with.
There seems to be a theme around that in the world right now, and or at least here,
Yeah.
right? So, but you found your way.
Yeah. So what happened was my my mom was at the time an adjunct professor at the University of Phoenix, which is an online school where you can get degrees and such. And she got me an interview as for a role. I'm trying to remember the name of the role. Let me look at it. I can never remember. The role was admissions advisor or admissions director or something like that. So that was my first sales job, but I didn't know it was a sales job. Why was it a sales job is because I was talking to kids and convincing them to go to college, convincing them to take out loans, convincing them to follow their dreams and their paths. And yeah, that was the first stint in sales without knowing it was sales. And in that role, I did that for 2.5 years. And by the end of year one, I was like the top advisor in the region. By the end of year two, I was like top 10 in the country, and was like, this is cool. What's next? But it wasn't a commission-based role. So it was just salary. And that salary was like back in the day, it was like $18,000 a year. I thought I was rich.
Oh my gosh, we're so dating ourselves with that. People would be offered that right now as a salary, and they'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, are you
My
trying to
first
kill me?"
paycheck. I remember my first paycheck. It was like $500. I was like, yeah, I'm rich.
When I tell people that my first job was at McDonald's at minimum wage, and they're like, "Oh, $7 and something." I'm like, "No,
It's
it
like,
was like 3 something."
yeah. So again, I didn't know it was a sales job, but I was doing really well at this role, and I ran in as one does. I ran into some friends at a bar in Phoenix, and they were buying all the expensive drinks and things that I couldn't afford, and I was like, "What are you guys doing? You guys were idiots in high school." And they told me they were in sales, and I was like, "What is that?" And they gave me the gist of what it is that they were doing, and I was like, that's really interesting. You're telling me I can make money for talking to people and selling them a product that's cool, etc. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, where do I sign up? And that's what got me in. And my first proper sales gig outside of the education space that I was in for a long time was at a little known company called YP.com, which I'll date myself again. It wasn't called YP when I worked for them. It was called the Yellow Pages.
I was about to ask. I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you talking about the Yellow Pages?"
I'm talking about the Yellow Pages. So when I started working there, they had just rebranded themselves to YP.com. So my first sales gig was selling advertising space for the Yellow Pages.
That's phenomenal.
And so, kind of learned the ropes there. I wasn't there very long. I learned the ropes a little bit, and then I got into a company that I really loved and still use to this day, which is a company called ZocDoc. They are a mobile phone app where you can book doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, all the above. And that's where I got my first kind of taste of do I want to continue to go down the path of individual contributor, or is there a pathway for me to be a leader? And I was really clamoring for, I think these managers are not so great. Can I do better? I think a lot of folks think that, but at the end of the day, being a manager and being a leader is really, really difficult. And I have respect for all those folks that do it, because everyone thinks they can do it better, but when you get into it, it takes some work.
I think that's really interesting that you identified that, because you identified that at this point in your career where you're starting to really take off and figure out this is what you're good at. You're good at sales.
Mm-hmm.
And then along that way, you identify, not only am I good at it, I could be better with proper leadership and management,
Mm-hmm.
identifying that they're two separate things.
Yep.
And I can help others do that.
Yep.
So, kind of leaning a little bit more into that, during the pandemic, which it's so weird to think that that started almost 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
But so many people were talking about how people were struggling during the pandemic, and it wasn't. You'll hear a lot of people that have been working remotely saying it's not the producers, it's not the contributors. People don't know how to manage and lead remotely. You have done that. You have tried to figure that out in a lot of different areas. So seeing that you identified that very early in your career, I'm curious as to your thought on how that contributed to people during the pandemic, that as a global entity of the world, right?
Yeah.
People just didn't know how to manage and lead.
Yeah.
When you had identified that as an individual in your own,
Yeah,
lifespan.
I think there's a few things, and I had to learn this the hard way, as most people do. When you get into trying to manage a team, you at least at that point, I wanted them to be molded and shaped exactly like me. I wanted them to work as hard as I did. I wanted them to know all the answers just like I did. I expected them to put in the same amount of time and work and effort. And I tell people all the time, and it's kind of an old adage that, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? And I would actually say I'm not the most talented person. I just work really hard. And I expected that from other folks, but you can't make people work the way that you work or act the way that you want them to act. You have to find their strengths, understand their weaknesses, and give them the ability to leverage those strengths in the way that's best for them. And so that was a hard lesson to learn early on. And still something that, I'll struggle with, because, some weeks I'll put in a 60, 70 hour week. And that's just the way that I work. That's not the way that everybody else works. And that's not the way that everybody else is effective.
I love that. And, we'll definitely be highlighting that, that quote and that belief, because I think it's really a hard point for some managers to, and I really think I want to differentiate this, because I think it's a harder point for managers to identify and get a hold of versus leaders to identify and get a hold of. To be both at one time is hard.
Yeah.
You've really been successful at that, but it's a hard thing to be able to do both. And for managers to really identify that people aren't, first of all, you can't clone yourself.
No.
You can't turn people
into
you.
More of me.
Or me. Like, can you imagine more Rays and Anns in the world? Yeah, that could go either way, frankly.
Yeah.
But it, like, how boring of a place would it be if there was only one type of person?
Oh, yeah.
And the lack of innovation that would happen, because there wouldn't be debates or anything. Like, we just wouldn't move forward without different personalities and individuals. And for a manager to get that and grasp that, you know what, this individual isn't performing with the scope and the definitions that we've put in front of them, instead of just saying, oh, you're out, but yet to identify, well, maybe they aren't understanding it in this way, or
Yeah.
maybe they need to work a little bit differently, and then they'll become a top performer. That's a hard thing to grasp,
Yeah.
instead of just tossing them out, but yet to change how we teach and how we allow them to work.
Yeah, and it's always something that you have to keep in the back of your head, because it's easy to fall back into, well, why won't everyone just do it the way that I do it? And that's not the right answer.
Exactly. So you've kind of made this, you've gone and you've taken this windy road, from selling people into getting into college and Yellow Pages and,
Yeah,
you know, all of these things, Outbound Engine into BPO, and now you're at Flippa.
yeah,
And what is, you know, where's it going for you? Like, where do you see your future growth?
yeah. That's a great question, and my answer, depending on the time of day, or depending on
Or
the
the
day of
time of the
the
end of the quarter, beginning of the quarter.
my answer to that is a little bit fluid, but you know, at Flippa, as the VP of sales here at Flippa, it's it's a really really interesting it's a really really interesting marketplace to work at, and totally different from what I've done in the past, as you've alluded to. I've been in education sales, I've been in tech sales, I've been in BPO sales, all wildly different. And here I am at a marketplace where people can buy and sell businesses. It's not like a traditional sale. It's not a SaaS product or a service where I'm training a team of folks to collect credit cards, right? It's a different skill set, and a different team that's being built. But what the reason why I'm here, and what I'm doing is I can grow and scale teams and coach and mentor and teach and train. And you know, we've been doing this here at Flip, at least I have, for the last 2.5 years, and it's been one heck of an experience. And the next step for me is, you know, what does a potential exit look like for Flippa? You know, what does the growth look like here? And then, you know, my skill set as it's evolved over time is around growing and building and scaling teams. So I'd love to do it again. You know, go to somewhere that's generally small, that doesn't have that leadership or that experience, and build it from, you know, them having one or two folks doing it and coming in and building it to 50 or 100 people or something like that. I love doing that. I love that.
So that actually brings up an interesting question. I've known hundreds of salespeople through my career, and most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, they stay in a very specific lane of sales. You know, this is what they sell, and they're very good at it. They might hop from one company to another, but it's always the same type of
Yeah.
item or service that they're selling.
Yep.
You have gone from multiple different things,
Yeah.
and are constantly learning. You know, I don't know if anybody else is picking up on this. Like, Ray is always learning. He went, and it started with kind of the like University of Phoenix, and now we're going back, and he loves to teach people, and he loves to learn new things. Like, there's a constant education feel behind you. But you always, when you go to a new company, it seems like it has to be something different. I don't want to do what I've always done before.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose, or does it just happen?
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't say it's on purpose. I'm not always looking for something different. I'm not, but so the step from the education path to tech sales, right? Was, you know, that's a pretty standard jump. Like, it kind of made sense, right? So nothing too wild there. But the step from tech sales into BPO, that's totally different, right? That's a very, very different piece. The reason I did that is at Outbound Engine, it was a startup, but it was a big startup. It was 400 or 500 people, and I was a little fish in a big pond, and was while I was in a managerial type position, there wasn't a whole lot of upward growth or upward momentum for me. I was stuck. I'd be in that role for who knows when, right? Too much politics going around, too much of that you got to deal with companies of that size. And who knows? I might still be there and still be in the same role. I have friends that are still there from 4 or 5 years ago that are doing the same thing.
I've had a lot of your former mentees that are amazing that I've worked with and would love to work with again because you did a great job with them.
And so what I did was I had a friend who left that company, Outbound Engine, and went to this BPO company, and he said, Ray, you got to come here. They haven't figured out how to sell this thing yet, and you'd be the best. You'd own it. And I go, man, I'm making pretty good money. I'm liking what I'm doing. I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. Um, and I just got that itch to go, okay, let me walk into this new thing. I think I was employee number 7. There was one other sale hire that I joined, and very quickly figured out, how to sell a great product and a great service, and grew that and took on the mantle of head of sales, and that drove my taking a step back from getting out of my comfort zone and going into the unknown. I remember walking into that 1-bedroom apartment, which is where we worked out of. Walking in that 1-bedroom apartment going, oh shoot, what did I do?
What did I do?
What did I do? I just left this beautiful office on the 15th floor in downtown Austin that overlooked the river, free lunches every day, a good paycheck, good commission, really happy where I'm at. What the heck did I do, Ann?
But what a gamble that turned out to be.
And it was absolutely a gamble. It was absolutely a gamble. And it's one that I'm thankful that I took, and
Yeah.
was supported by my family and friends to take the leap, and it paid off. It paid off. That experience at the BPO of growing and building and scaling that team, and experiencing an exit, led me to Flippa, which is the world's largest marketplace to buy and sell businesses. And what we do is we help entrepreneurs exit every single day. And so that experience and that gamble led me to this really amazing opportunity and company that is totally different. And here I am 2.5 years later, leading a fantastic team of advisors, certified M&A advisors, which is, who would ever thought I'd say that in a sentence?
That's even whenever you first started there, I remember having this conversation and never saw your team becoming what you've built it to be today. It's pretty amazing to see what you've built and so impressive.
Well, thank you. It's less about me and more about them. It's finding the right folks that are just as hungry and want to win. And that's about putting together the right team and finding that team that wants to win just as much as you do.
Absolutely. And I do want to talk a little bit more about Flippa specifically because I have a lot of questions about what you've done there. But before we do, love to play a little game of this or that
Yeah.
and have everybody get to know Ray just a little bit more, a
Sure.
little peek behind the curtains. Have you ever played this or that?
I have not played this or that, but I'm game for it. Let's do it.
All right. So, this or that, the way that we play it on the show is that I give 2 words or phrases and we'll both answer
Okay.
and kind of figure out why. So, it's really easy, nothing horrible. Although I did ask one spicy question
I
once.
love I love a spicy question. That's great.
So, first question, call or text?
Oh, call all day long. Yeah. I'm not a big texter.
Really? You always text me.
I know I'm a caller though. I am a caller. Caller. Any of my friends or my family, for that matter, I'm notorious for just giving them a quick call and then we'll have a very brief conversation, and then I go, okay, gotta go, bye.
I love it when somebody that I've known for a long time will call me and do that, and they're like, "Okay, love you, bye." Because they're so used to saying "love you" to their
Yeah.
family,
I'm
and
I'm
it's just, like, slips off the tongue.
I'm very notorious for doing that. I've got a reputation for doing that.
It's it's awesome. So I too am a caller, but I've gotten so used to people just texting me
Yeah.
that see this game, it's like you have to pick call,
Yeah.
or you have to pick one of the choices, but I'm really more of a voice to texter.
Ah, yeah. See, I also voice to text, but every time I do it, it always ends up sending the
But
wrong
that's the fun of it. Like, and that's why people love texting me is because 'cause I'll send them some text message and I like and then I'll send like 3 of them in a row
Yeah.
and not check them because I'm going so fast,
Yeah.
and then I'll say, "Stupid voice to text." And, like, you go back and read it, like, a month later, and you're laughing because you have no idea what you were saying,
Yeah.
but in the moment, people figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yep.
sometimes saying people's names.
Oh, it's the best. I find myself when I'm texting, I'm usually in my car driving, which is not what you're supposed to be doing, right? So I
That's
voice I voice the text when I'm in the car.
yes.
I voice
Yes.
the text when I'm in the car, and then all of a sudden it's not right. So then I'm driving with my knee doing this. I'm a danger on the road, so
Yeah,
stay
well,
clear.
I we'll edit that out.
That's
The
fair.
wife will never know.
She doesn't need to know.
What what she doesn't know won't hurt her. Um, stand-up comedy or improv?
Ah, that's a good question. I really like improv, and I think that has to go with I love sports, and there's a lot of improv in sports. I love getting on a call with a prospective customer and client, and it takes a turn that you're not expecting, and you gotta be able to think on your feet, and so there's improv plays a role in that, right? Stand-ups are great, but also it's a practiced routine. There's doing the same thing every single time,
Mhm.
and I like improv because I think it's more challenging, and you really got to think on your feet.
I this is one where I like where they mesh together. I
Yeah,
love those stand-ups where they have the interaction with the audience,
yeah,
and so that's not like the same stand-up routine every time
yeah,
because because they are interacting, and I know that but it's it's very few stand-ups that I like that. So I would have to go with you on
yeah.
the improv because very much I like that risk that's associated with it and the fun, and
Sometimes it bombs. Sometimes it
sometimes
doesn't
it bombs.
work.
And those are almost funnier because you're like, "Oh, that was terrible."
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
And sometimes when they ask the audience to throw things out and they throw out like this thing that you know they're never gonna be able to do anything,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
they knock it out of the park, and those are fantastic.
Yep.
Absolutely love those. All right, last question. Road trip or cruise?
I've never been on a cruise, and I don't think I would be a cruise person. I'm definitely a road trip person. Nothing against folks that are cruise people. I'm just not. I'm not the person that can just sit on a beach chair and having all the boozy drinks and all the food and the buffets. Like that sounds cool, but I don't. I want to do that, but not on a boat. I want to do that on a beach at a resort in Mexico.
This one was hard for me. 'Cause I'm the same I've always been the same way. I've loved road trips. My husband and I took, like, a 5,000-mile road trip around the US and,
Mhm.
um, love them.
Yep.
Would love to, like, do that more often. But I took a cruise. My mother had a bucket list trip, so I took her to Alaska on one of those Alaskan cruises,
Yep.
and I thought I was gonna hate it
Yeah.
because of everything you just said.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't factor into my head the times that we would get off of the boat
That's
and
fair.
spend all a day like, I took my 150-year-old mother, what was it? But not bungee jumping, when you go from tree to tree.
Oh, what is zip lining?
Ziplining.
Yeah.
I have videos of this old lady ziplining through the rainforest in Alaska.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't factor all of that into my thought process. So this one's hard for me. I'm having a hard time choosing because now she's like, can I add a bucket list trip to have you take me on a cruise through Italy and Spain? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that sounds enticing. I think I'm a little stuck having to choose road trip. I have a way too big for me pickup truck that is just meant to be on the road. And so
Yes, you
if I'm
do.
not if I'm not driving that thing, what's the point
If
of it?
I had that truck, it would be absolutely road trip because we would be having a fifth wheel
Yes,
behind it and we'd be on the road all the time.
that's
There'd
right.
be like there would not even be a question
Yeah,
here.
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
the fifth wheel is necessary.
Yes. Absolutely. Like I completely am on board with you if we had that truck. No, no cruise. What cruise? What's a cruise? No cruises for
Yeah,
me. All right. Well, thanks for playing.
of course.
That was fun. I like hearing about I love talking through the answers and hearing how people think. So going back to Flippa,
Yeah.
um, just so that everybody understands kind of what Flippa is, you've mentioned it a little bit that it's a marketplace for businesses, but can you walk a little bit through because I know that it's for both buyers and sellers, but I don't know that everybody that's listening really truly knows what that means.
Yeah, yeah. So Flippa is a platform that's been around for about 15 years, and it is the largest marketplace to buy and sell businesses that are part of the digital asset class. So think SaaS businesses, think e-com businesses, think content businesses, think mobile phone apps and things like that. And our mission is to democratize the exit. We want to make business ownership and entrepreneurship accessible to everybody. And we want to be the investment bank for the 99%. So we focus on deal sizes, business sizes that are from $10,000 in value up to about $50 million in value. So that would be micro M&A, the main street, and the lower end of the middle market. And that's where we live and operate as a company. To give you some context on the volume and the amount of businesses that are bought and sold on this marketplace every single year, we sold 12,000 businesses last year on Flippa. 12,000. So there's a lot of businesses that are for sale. There are starter businesses for folks that maybe don't have a ton of experience in how to build from scratch an Amazon FBA ecom business, but there's one that's been built a little bit, starting to drive a little bit of revenue, and that owner is willing to stay on and teach you how to grow that business a little bit. So there's a whole economy on Flip at the lower end of the marketplace that are building these kind of starter businesses and folks that are interested in a bit of a side hustle. Maybe they're working a 9 to 5 and they want to get out of that 9 to 5, or they want to drive some extra income. They can buy those already kind of pre-built businesses for anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 that are cash flowing and driving revenue. And that's a big part of the marketplace on the lower end of the marketplace. As you move up the value chain and you start getting into high 6 and 7 figure deals, those are your entrepreneurs that are already running usually successful businesses that are looking to roll something else up into what they're doing. Maybe they're a content business. Maybe they have a fantastic podcast, or maybe they have a great YouTube channel, or maybe they've got a great blog that's driving millions of organic users every single month, and they've got a portfolio of these things and they want to roll them up. An example of something like that is a business that sold a few months back called All About Cookies. Great name, but it's not about chocolate chip cookies, unfortunately. It's about like cookies, GDPR cookies, and things like that, right? And this was a business that was sold, for mid 7 figures, had been running by one person for 15 years, and was in their 70s and ready for an exit. Had no idea that their business was worth anything, and found us, and we found a great buyer who is a publishing business and was able to roll that right up into what they did and was able to retire and set sails across the world with a nice exit that he wasn't even expected to get.
So I have a business,
Yep.
an e-commerce. I've been doing it as a side hustle. Didn't really think anything about
Yep.
what was going to happen after,
Yep.
whatever, just after.
Yeah.
It was never a thought process. All I started it was just to do a side hustle, get a little extra cash. And now I run across this conversation, right? And I'm watching this show right here, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is possible. What is it that I need to be thinking about if I'm going to reach out to Flippa as a potential seller?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of things do I need to put together, be thinking about? Because I've never thought about it before.
Yeah. That's a great question, and the question that our team answers all day, every day. And so, when starting any business, you always want to start thinking about, in the back of your head, is what does an exit plan look like, right? What does an exit look like? Having the thought that, yes, I can exit my business. So first and foremost, it's having a good profit and loss statement. If you're driving revenue, having a clean profit and loss statement is critical, and is one of the first things that you want to have. Hire a good accountant. Absolutely okay to use a service like QuickBooks Online or Xero or something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, at Flippa, we integrate with those platforms, so we can help programmatically build a P&L for you if you're using those tools. And so having your financials in order is key. The way that valuations work in this space and in this market is typically based on your net profit or your SDE, your seller discretionary earnings, right? So if you don't know what your trailing 12 months net profit is, as an example, very, very difficult to be able to value your business, and very, very, very difficult for a buyer to be interested in your business if you don't know your numbers, right?
Okay, let's talk about that for our new sellers.
Yeah.
What is a net profit? Can you walk through that and explain what that is? Those two acronyms that you just used. Let's explain what those are to our listeners.
Yeah. So net profit is as simple as you have gross revenue. So you have all the money that you've made from your business, right? Let's call it $1 million, just to play, have some play money, some Monopoly money, right? So
I love Monopoly.
Yes, me too.
I always come out rich.
So your business, I know, right? So let's pretend that your e-com business, in this case, has driven $1 million in gross revenue. That is all the money that the business has made in the last 12 months. Fantastic. So that is your top line revenue number. So where you get net profit is we have to start subtracting all of your expenses. We have to start subtracting all of your expenses. So what are your expenses in an e-commerce business? Your expenses might be cost of goods, right? So you got to pay for your inventory, right? So your inventory costs something. You're selling that inventory at a higher price. So what does your inventory actually cost? What are you spending on marketing and advertising? What are you paying your employees, if you have any employees? What are any of the other expenses that are happening every month over month, or quarter over quarter, that you're spending on your business? You take all those numbers, you subtract them from your revenue, your gross revenue, and you have net profit. That is your net profit. So it is revenue minus expenses. There's your net profit. And in an e-com business, a good e-com business is going to be operating with margins in the 20 to 30% range, typically. Meaning that if you're doing $1 million in revenue, that you're probably making $200,000 to $300,000 in net profit. A business today that is generating $200,000 to $300,000 in net profit for an e-com biz is going to sell for again, this is all relative and ballpark numbers here, but according to current markets, our market insights, the hundreds of thousands of businesses that we've sold, and we've got that data, you're looking at probably a two to 4x multiple on that $200,000 to $300,000 net profit, which means the value of that business is going to be somewhere between 400,000 and 1 point, or what is it? What did I say? 3 million. So 369, 900,000. So somewhere between 400 and 900,000. And then we can shrink that valuation by understanding the type of business you're in. Is it in a niche that's more valuable? Pet niche? Are you selling t-shirts? Are you selling pet products? Are you selling supplements, or are you selling jewelry? All of those play a factor into which end of that valuation that business is going to be at. And we're not making those numbers up. We've sold hundreds of thousands of these over the years. So we're taking that data and that insight and able to put a current market indication on what those businesses are actually selling for.
That's awesome. Now, what about, you said seller discretionary?
Yeah, seller discretionary earnings is a little bit more sophisticated, and that is typically when a business is going to be a little bit larger in scale, so maybe generating more revenue. And seller discretionary earnings would be an example of it working. Is you have your total top line revenue, your gross revenue again, and you still have your expenses. But the reason why you would have a seller discretionary earnings is, let's say you're the sole operator of the business and you're drawing a salary of $500,000 a year out of that gross revenue, and you're spending 10 hours a week on the business, right? Well, that's fantastic. You're paying yourself with your business. Great work. Right? But the new owner of that business maybe they're not going to pay themselves that $500,000.
So I'm a seller. I have never thought about it, but I'm watching this episode, and now I'm wondering, is my business sellable? How do I know that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and a question that we deal with all the time. The answer is just about any business is sellable, just like it's analogous to any house is sellable. Now, there are better businesses than others. It can depend on the type of business, the age of the business, the niche of the business, et cetera. My advice that I would offer to anyone that is interested in starting or building a business, or is considering an exit in the future, is to have a handful of kind of things to have check marked off, right? And those things are, in the digital landscape, a SaaS business, an e-com business, a content business, age plays a factor, right? Age plays a factor. If you've started running a business and you're driving revenue 3 or 4 months after, good revenue after 3 or 4 months after starting that business, you can sell that business, but it's not going to sell for what you want it to sell for. You need to have some age. You need to have some consistency of driving that revenue and seeing growth month after month, quarter after quarter. And so on Flippa, smaller businesses can sell with a year's timeline, but our best, highest valued, highest quality businesses have been running for minimum 3, 4, even 5 years in some cases. And that will help to drive more buyers to have a look at that business, because it's less risky. It's less risk adverse, right? Number 2 is actually driving revenue. So actually a business that is driving revenue versus one that is pre-revenue. You can absolutely sell a pre-revenue business. Absolutely. But
now, really, that surprises me. So all of these individuals that are listening, they've come up with an idea, they've started a business, but it hasn't generated revenue.
Yeah.
They can sell their business.
They can sell their business because somebody else doesn't want to do the legwork to build the bones of that business. So the bones of that business are sellable, and somebody else can take it and then implement what they want to implement into it. Now, to be candid, a business like that's not going to sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, but it is sellable. So if you want to walk away instead of getting nothing, you can get something, right, for the time and effort that you put into it. So cash flowing will drive a evaluation, age, authority score. So think of using a tool like SEMrush, SEMrush.com. It's a tool that can help derive what your authority score is online, which is essentially a trust factor in how you leverage and drive organic traffic. So the higher your authority score is, the more organic traffic you're getting on your website or your business, and that will play a factor. So organic traffic plays.
So what is exactly is an authority score? I mean, is it like you hear of, cost of acquisition, customer
Yeah.
acquisition, you hear of like a net profit, you hear a lot of these things, and we've talked about a few of them,
Yeah.
but what is
And those are all
authority?
important. Those are all
Yeah.
important. But what is an authority score? An authority score in layman's terms, and how I like to describe it, because I'm not all that technical, but in layman's terms, it's your trust score and how Google recognizes you. So what that means is Google has an authority score of 100. It's on a scale of 0 to 100. Google trusts itself. Apple, Amazon, the Fortune 500 businesses of the world, they're going to have SEMrush authority scores in the 90s, right? That means that if it's coming from Amazon, they're going to drive their search algorithms to those people because they're more trustworthy than the others, right? Whereas Flippa, a company like ours, we have an authority score somewhere in the 70s. So in the online M&A digital marketplace space, where we are by far the oldest in the space, the most well-known, the biggest, the largest. And so our authority score is much higher than any of the competitors. Now, if somebody is coming in and wants to get into the digital M&A marketplace space, they're going to have an authority score of 1 when they get going, because they don't have the trust of Google, right? So age, traffic, trust of you are who you say you are and you do what you say you're going to do is how you can drive authority score up.
That's very interesting. And you mentioned SEMrush.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there another way to know your authority score?
Yeah, there are other tools out there. And if you just do a simple Google search, the tools that pop up first or second, they're going to be the most trusted by Google.
There you go.
So they're out there. We partner with SEMrush, and we really like what they do. So every listing on Flippa will actually have an integration with SEMrush showcasing where their authority score is. So you can use any ones you want. They're all, the way they track them are a little bit different, but long story short, SEMrush is something we like to use here at Flippa.
Fantastic. So one of the questions I always like to ask guests of our show is to give advice to individuals that are watching and learning, and maybe they want to make a shift. One of your real impressive traits that you've done is you're an excellent sales guy, but you've switched industries. So what if I'd like you to do is talk to that individual that may be watching right now, and what would you say to them if they're like, I love sales, I'm great at sales, but I would too like to switch and maybe change what I'm selling, because I've been in the same industry for a long time, but I'm scared to make that switch. What would you tell that person right now? I'm going to give you the floor. You talk directly to them.
Yeah. So I would tell this person that change will only make you better. When you start selling the same thing over and over and over again, we'll use real estate, a real estate SaaS service as an example, because that's somewhere that I spent some time in. And you would have the old timers who had been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and they just had their scripts down. They had their rebuttals. They had their objections. If somebody said X, they had Y ready to go, like soldiers on a battlefield that knew exactly the tactics to take, right? It's impressive. It's really impressive. But if they got something new that threw them off of their script, they were dead in the water. They had zero chance to make that sale. And so I would always tell somebody to be a little risk adverse. If you can sell one thing, you can sell anything, as long as it is a good and quality product. As long as it is a good and quality product or service, take the risk, because it's only going to give you more ammunition and more arrows in your quiver to make you better doing the next thing. So don't get stuck in that same repeat pattern. You won't grow. You'll just stay where you are. There's no room to grow. So take the chance, take the risk. It will only make you better. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable at first. Yeah, you got to figure some stuff out, but it's worth it, because you'll only get better and you'll only grow as a salesperson. If you want to go down an individual contributor path, it will make you more valuable to future roles because they see how diverse you are. If you want to go down a management or leadership path, again, it's the same thing. You have more. You'll have more gray hairs and whiskers on your ears, wisdom whiskers on your ears, that will just make you better and stronger.
We just call that glitter.
Well, I don't have any gray, so.
You were strategic. You just went ahead and took it all off.
That's right. That's right.
Smart. So I know that you do these exit road shows, and those are posted. So anybody that's watching, if you have a chance to attend any of those exit road shows that Ray does throughout the year or Flippa does throughout the year, I highly encourage you to attend those. They're not just in the US either. You're hitting Bulgaria, you're hitting Singapore, you're hitting Australia, you're all over the place. So definitely watch for those.
Yeah, please do. We'll be in Dublin in 2 weeks' time. We have a fantastic European market. The cool thing about Flippa is we're very much a global marketplace, and roughly 70% of the businesses that sell on Flippa are selling cross-border. So it might be a European buyer buying an American business, or an Australian business owner selling to a Bulgarian buyer. It's a wild marketplace and a beautiful thing. So yeah, please catch us. You can catch me there. You can catch me on LinkedIn, as Ann mentioned. You can catch me directly via email, ray.preston@flippa.com.
All those are listed below. They popped up on the screen.
So if you have any questions about anything, I'm very much accessible and would love to chat about anything as it relates to buying, selling, growing, investing in businesses.
And I think one of the things I really want to make sure that we kind of highlight here is we've spent a lot of time talking about selling and how to sell your business and how to know when to sell your business, but you cater to buyers too. So if you're interested in buying one of these businesses that people are, talking about, maybe that's a whole new episode. Maybe that's our next episode in a few months that we come back and we talk about what's important to know when you're buying a business.
Yeah, that's right. The buy side community at Flippa is huge, and if you're looking for deal flow, as we like to call it, we're the place to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just incentive for me to have you back on the show, Ray.
That's great, Ann.
Thank you so much for coming on. I always love spending time with you and just getting to chat and catch up. But this was fun because just getting to talk and learn a little bit more about Flippa. And the links below, we'll go back, and please, if you do go to Flippa, please make sure you tell them that you saw Ray on Unexpected Journey, and who knows what will happen. Who knows? So always love to let people know that you join them from there. And we really appreciate you joining the show and watching and seeing Ray here from Flippa. And we will see you again next week. Thanks, everybody. As we wrap up the episode, we would like to take this time to thank you for joining us this week on Unexpected Journey. Our guest information will be linked in the episode description, along with a link to our host website, annbib.com, and our sponsors' websites, remoteevolution.com, ethossupport.com, and yourcohort.co. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on your favorite podcast app and on our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode and we can continue to bring them to you. Let us know your thoughts on what we discussed in the comment section. And once again, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again next time on Unexpected Journey.